Hey everybody, I'm getting ready to talk about my next Dremel project here. It's a little bit colder these days, running down in the single digits here in my garage, so I'm a little more bundled up, but no reason we can't get out here and get some work done today. So what I'm going to be doing is making a small modern desk clock for your office, or just kind of a more of a conversation piece, but still functional in the fact that it tells time. So not a real complicated project, and chances are you have most of the materials you would need at your house if you've done other projects. I'm going to be utilizing some wood that you might have left over. This is just a piece from an existing project that I didn't use, and so just a piece of oak from a hardware store, utilizing the Multimax and the Ultra Saw, along with just a simple clock kit. You'll see how we're able to turn all these materials into a pretty neat little conversation piece, I think. For here we are for the first cut. And you see I've set up a piece of scrap wood to act as a guide for the Ultra Saw. So we're just going to kind of butt that up against there and run it across to get a nice even cut. And there you go. Work like a champ. So now we just have to go through and rip it down the other line here, and then we'll have the dimensions of both pieces. I still need to cut those into the individual ones and create the angles on the ends. Well, here we are. I just cut the angle on my miter saw, just a simple 45-degree angle, but you'll see what happens here is you're able to keep the base, and once you take the piece that goes on the top, this is going to mount against the floor. See if I can do this with one hand, creating a nice tight angle for that bottom piece to match up against when we mount. So we're going to be creating, like I said, this kind of, I don't know, upside down 7, or kind of a leaning L that will become the basis for our clock. The next part of the puzzle here is going to be to start sanding this wood down. We want to make sure we have a nice even finish for the paint and the stain when that comes into play. But we'll be using the Multimax. It's got a great sanding attachment, as we see here. And it's got different variations of the sandpaper, coarse, medium, and fine. I'm going to be starting out with the coarse, giving my wood a good once over to keep it consistent. Then I'll be applying some wood filler, moving back with the medium, and then doing a final sanding with the fine before I move into primer and blocking out the parts that will be painted to give a really smooth, almost automotive quality paint to the back and an accent on the front of this clock. Well, I got them all rough sanded here. Next is going to be sticking in the wood filler. So I'm just going to put some wood filler in there to help kind of fill some of the grain. Oak is what this is. It's pretty hard wood, so I want to try to even out the little nuances in the surface here that the sandpaper's not going to get. I find that works really well just to use a plastic spatula you'd use for automotive bodywork, Bondo or whatnot, to help kind of spread that wood filler over the top of the wood to help kind of minimize the amount of sanding you have to do on the tail end. And there you can see the first layer of filler on there. I'm not worried too much about any overhang like on the back edge there. That stuff will pop off pretty easy when it's dry. But it's a nice thin coat over the top. It'll sand up really nice and allow me to have a good even surface to work with stain or paint. Well, I've gone through and sanded the first coat of wood filler off, but kind of got a little bit ahead of myself, but still needed to drill the hole right there for that center stem of the clock mechanism to work through. So I've just gone through and got a drill bit that's the right size to allow that to go through without too much extra. Got to drill that, start mounting it up, and make sure that everything fits roughly before I continue with all the finish work on the wood pieces. Here you can see the basic structure of the clock itself. Gone through and mounted the body for the clock mechanism. This is all sitting on my workbench right now. Went through and used a spade bit to countersink that middle area. Just using this right here, allowing me to thread that nut that's going to hold that in place on there without having to go through the thickness of the board. So I think it'll offer just a little bit of detail when it's all said and done. Again, like right now, just need to sand things up. Start getting the paint on there. Hopefully it warms up a little bit. It's tough to paint when it's so cold. Here it is, all stained up, but got the clear coat on there, just drying now. Wanted to get all that finished and taken care of before I start doing the paint, which will show up on the back side and a little section on the front. So pretty happy with the progress, looking good. Here are the two pieces. all masked up after they've been stained and applied with the gloss finish. The masked area is what I want to keep wood. Everything that's not masked, I'm going to prime with a filling primer to help kind of keep things smooth, and then apply a color coat over the top of that. As you can see, I've left one of the quadrants of the face of the clock open up, so this will be a little bit of an accent color that's going to wrap around to the back and then also onto the inside of the bottom. So again, just masking off the area you want to protect, and then we're just going to fill in the bottoms, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the top before I add in some color. So hopefully this all goes well. It's a little cold, but I think we're looking good. Well, here's the piece I was hoping to have work out for me, but it did not. As you can see, I had some reaction with the stain or the clear coat with the actual paint itself. Blistered up and bubbled. I had to go through and sand it all back down and try it again this morning, and yeah, it's just not going to work. So what I'm going to do is actually start over again, but I already drilled my hole, so I have to use my Dremel and open that back up so I can have a little bit of a relief cut for my nut to hold my clock body on. So that's what my next step is going to be cutting out that little circle there about halfway through the wood. So in order to add the numbers to the clock, I'm actually just going to use a wood burner with this template that I've made. Go around the perimeter of that circle at each one of the 30 degrees increments to mark the 1 through 12 location of the clock dial. Now here we are. I'm just going to go through and paint the inside of each one of these holes with some orange paint to help keep that visible. A little bit of patience and a small brush. It's not too tough. I'm getting ready to assemble the base with the top. You'll see I drilled some holes and just stuck some finish nails in here. I'm actually going to cut those off a whole lot shorter, but they're going to act as little pins to help hold the top to the bottom when I glue it up and put it in a clamp. Since it's on an angle, it's going to want to slide when I clamp those together. This will just help kind of give a little extra mechanical advantage and hold things in place through that glue up process. And here they are, cut off. Like I said, you just need a little bit. I'm going to match it up to the top, mark my spots and drill little countersink holes and put some glue on there and clamp it up. Almost done with this.